She tossed the valet ticket at me like I was a damn bellhop, didn't even look me in the eye, just kept her smile aimed at the hedge fund prick with the Hermes tie and perfect veneers. Her fingers brushed his sleeve like she was touching royalty. "You don't mind, do you?" she said, voice dripping with champagne and contempt. The room was still echoing with laughter from some joke I hadn't been invited to laugh at. I stood there holding that stupid red slip of paper, the one with our license plate scribbled on it in Sharpie, while she slid her arm around another man's. The same man she'd been flirting with all night. Mark something. The kind of guy who invests in pharmaceutical short plays and dines with senators. He grinned at me like I was a used napkin, so I left. I didn't say a word, just pocketed the valet ticket and walked out through the service exit. The security guard nodded at me like he felt sorry for me. I nodded back like I wasn't already playing a longer game than anyone in that ballroom could imagine. See, most men in that moment would have screamed, punched a wall, made a scene. I'd done my screaming months ago, in silence, in spreadsheets, in signatures, in reorganizations and asset transfers so quiet, not even Rachel noticed the tremor beneath her heels. She thought she was walking on marble. I knew she was walking on ice. If you're still listening, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Yeah, I know it's easy to forget, but 97% of people who listen never do. And it really does push us to keep telling these stories, the ones too many men live through and too few talk about. All right, back to it. The thing about that gala? I funded it, quietly of course. My name was never on the program, just my money. That wine she toasted with, flown in from my business partner's vineyard, the nonprofit Rachel claimed to be hosting for, that was my accountant's foundation. She used me to climb into the room and then acted like I was the coat rack. She didn't even glance back as she disappeared with him. Not a flicker of hesitation. No shame. Her bare shoulders shimmered under the lights like a snake's skin as she vanished into the glass elevator with Mark's hand squarely on the small of her back. I walked to the edge of the parking lot, past valets who didn't recognize me without her beside me. I wasn't the power couple anymore. I was just a guy in a tux who didn't fit the scene. I handed the valet ticket to a kid who looked barely 18. He whistled for the car like I hadn't just been publicly humiliated in the most expensive room in the city. When my car pulled up, I didn't drive home. I didn't go to a bar. I didn't call a friend. I drove straight to the one place no one knew she'd never thought to ask about, the office of the lawyer who helped me build the trap. Because here's the truth Rachel never cared to learn. I'm quiet, not stupid, generous, not blind. And beneath every generous man who's been stepped on, ignored, emasculated in public, there's a version of him that took notes. And I had notes, folders of them. She thought the night ended with her walking out on me. But it was the night I walked away from the last bit of illusion. The moment the valet ticket hit my chest, the marriage ended. And somewhere deep in my chest, I felt calm. Not good, not bad, just ready. Let her have her moment. Let her ride the glass elevator into the clouds. Let her sip champagne with the wolves. I already knew how it ended. She just didn't know yet. I wasn't always the man with the folder. 10 years ago, I was just a guy with a 401k, a modest consulting firm, and a wife who dreamed of opening a boutique candle brand. It started small, scented wax in mason jars, handwritten labels, cutesy names like April and Aspen and Whiskey Weather. I built her website in a weekend, designed the labels, hand-delivered the first 300 units to a pop-up market one Christmas while she drank hot toddies with her old roommate and took selfies. And I loved it. Not the candles, the look in her eyes when it all started to work, when the orders came in, when customers left reviews calling it luxury with soul. That look made me believe I was building something with her, that the late nights packaging orders in our garage were worth it. When she asked if we could use the money I'd put aside for early retirement to open a flagship location downtown, I said yes. No hesitation. I cashed out a 6-figure chunk of my future so she could paint the walls black and gold and install reclaimed wood shelves from Vermont. She didn't even thank me. She posted an Instagram story that read, "Manifestation works if you believe." Still, I put her name on the lease. When we bought the house, I used the proceeds from selling my grandfather's property, something I swore I'd never do. She wanted something with light and flow. I wanted her to feel proud. So I made the down payment, paid the mortgage, and put both our names on the deed. But things shifted, subtly at first. She started referring to the boutique as her company. When I corrected her, just once, gently, she laughed and said, "Oh, come on, people don't need to know you helped." She stopped introducing me at events as her husband and started saying, "This is Daniel, he helps with operations." I wasn't her partner anymore. I was a feature of the brand, some functional furniture like the desk her assistant sat behind. I ignored it longer than I should have. Call it loyalty, or ego, or fear that if I admitted what I was seeing, I'd have to burn everything down. But contempt is a funny thing. It doesn't always come in screaming matches. Sometimes it shows up as a smirk when you offer advice, a sigh when you walk into the room, or the way she'd text under the table during dinner, then laugh and say, "You wouldn't get it. It's just business." 6 months before the gala, I stopped pretending. I contacted a friend, Marcus, who works in asset restructuring. I told him I needed to protect myself without setting off alarms. "Quiet reorg?" he asked. "Very," I said. We moved the house title into a shell trust I controlled. I had her sign the quitclaim deed during a stack of refinance documents, sandwiched between warranty disclosures and signature pages. She didn't ask questions, never read past the sticky notes I marked for her. Then I began selling my stake in the business, quietly, through intermediaries. A holding company bought the shares from me bit by bit, masked by dummy signatories. She never noticed. Why would she? She thought I was still playing house. I kept everything: emails, timestamps, legal memos. I documented every signature she gave, every form she rushed through with that same dismissive flick of the pen. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted to be ready when she destroyed herself. And let's be honest, she would. People like Rachel always do. The ones who start believing their own curated mythology. The ones who think power is measured in followers and invitations, and who forget that behind every great performance, someone built the damn stage. She thought I was soft, a man who smiled through condescension and paid the bills without asking questions. She had no idea I was sharpening the knife while she was posing with it for pictures. The first thing she noticed was the silence. Rachel blinked herself awake in a high-rise bedroom too pristine to be lived in. The bedsheets were crisp, the walls bare, not even a toothbrush in the marble-lined bathroom. There was no music playing, no lingering cologne in the air, no clutter, just cold elegance, like a showroom designed for people who only slept in their homes once a week. She stretched a little, expecting to find Mark lying beside her or maybe nursing a coffee on the balcony, admiring his kingdom. But the other side of the bed was smooth, undisturbed, no phone charging, no cufflinks on the nightstand. She padded barefoot into the kitchen, still wearing her dress from the gala, makeup smudged, heels dangling from her hand, and there, waiting like a punchline, stood a middle-aged woman in a uniform, wiping down a quartz countertop with industrial precision. The housekeeper didn't flinch when Rachel entered. She simply turned, handed her a neatly folded $50 bill, and said, "Mr. Kessler said this should cover your ride." Rachel laughed, not a chuckle, more of a confused scoff. "I'm sorry. What?" "He left early. No instructions beyond that." "No note?" "No, ma'am." "No message?" The woman looked at her kindly. "I think you should go now." Rachel looked down at the bill, suddenly insulted. A 50. The man she left her husband for, at a gala he funded, had sent her off like a forgettable night shift. She tried calling him as she stepped into the elevator, straight to voicemail. She tried again, eyes narrowed, blocked. It wasn't rejection, it was deletion. The Uber ride back to the house was quiet. Her driver didn't say a word, didn't ask how her night had gone, didn't try to flirt. Thank God. Her phone buzzed once, an email from a client canceling a wholesale order, pending clarification on ownership. She didn't understand it. She ignored it. When she walked through the front door, she felt the first flicker of something foreign. Stillness. Daniel's car wasn't in the driveway. At first, she assumed he was out. Gym, errands, a walk maybe. He liked walks. But the usual clutter was gone. His keys weren't in the bowl, his coat not on the hook, his shoes missing from the rack. And on the dining table, perfectly centered, was a single envelope with her name written in his handwriting. She opened it half expecting divorce papers, maybe a cold apology or some theatrical guilt trip. She would have welcomed it, anything to give her control over the narrative again. But it wasn't that. No legal language, no lawyer's watermark, just a page. On it, a notarized list of asset transfers dated over the past 6 months, itemized, clinical. Her boutique sold, the deed to the house transferred to a holding trust, her equity in the brand diluted to zero, even her company email credentials suspended. Her phone buzzed again, this time her assistant. "Hey, just got word the brand's being restructured. Should I still come in?" At the bottom of the list, in Daniel's script, just 3 words. This is nothing. There was no signature, no demand, just that quiet, chilling line. She reread the page again, the room starting to spin. She checked the date on the quitclaim deed. Dated 3 months ago, her signature was on it. Suddenly the house felt alien. The framed pictures, hers. The art, hers. But the space, it was his. It always had been. She opened the fridge, empty, except for a bottle of white wine with a sticky note. Best served cold. Daniel hadn't yelled. He hadn't begged. He hadn't asked her why she left that night. He simply ensured she had nothing to come back to. She walked into the boutique like she still owned it. Head high, sunglasses on, heels clicking like war drums across the polished concrete floor. But something felt wrong. Subtle things. The lighting was different. The scent, formerly her signature blend of amber and cedar, was gone, replaced by something lighter. Vanilla? Lavender? Her assistant wasn't at the front desk. A new girl stood behind the counter, eyes wide like she'd just seen a ghost wearing last season's ego. "Can I help you?" she asked, nervous. Rachel gave her a tight smile. "I'm Rachel. This is my company." The girl's eyes darted down. "Oh, I was told the former owner might stop by." "Former? Excuse me?" I think you should speak to the manager, or maybe the new owner. I just started." Rachel didn't reply. She stormed past the girl, heels stabbing the floor like accusations. She walked into what used to be her office, only to find it stripped. No desk, no art, not even the ridiculous quartz crystal paperweight her old assistant claimed balanced energy. Just an empty space and a taped box labeled R. Miller Personal Effects. Inside it, a single framed photo of her and Daniel at the boutique's launch. Smiling, young, before she knew how disposable loyalty could be. She didn't take the box. Instead, she marched back outside, got in her car, and drove straight to the attorney's office who helped her incorporate the business 5 years ago. She didn't call ahead. She didn't wait. When she burst into his office, Harold looked up from his desk like he'd been expecting her, resigned, not surprised. "Rachel," he said calmly, gesturing for her to sit. "I was wondering how long it would take." "Why is my name off the business?" she demanded. "Why can't I access the bank account? Why is there a new leaseholder? What the hell is going on?" Harold sighed and folded his hands. "You sold your majority shares 6 months ago." She laughed, actually laughed. "To who? I haven't sold anything. I would remember selling my company." He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder, opened it slowly, slid a signed purchase agreement across the desk. Her name, her signature, notarized, dated. This is forged," she hissed. "It's not," he said. "You signed it. In my office, alongside the quitclaim deed for the house. That was a refinance package. You didn't read it." She stared at the page, heart pounding. "I would never sign this." "You did. You had a glass of wine in your hand. You laughed at the legalese. You said, 'Just tell me where to sign.' No, this is Daniel. He tricked me. He set me up." Harold didn't reply. Rachel shot up from her chair. "Undo it." "I can't. It's clean. It's legal. The transaction was reviewed by compliance, audited by a third party. Your shares were purchased by a holding entity Daniel created months ago. The business was restructured and sold to new ownership. You were paid." "I didn't get anything." "You did. It was routed to the joint account, the one he removed you from last week." She felt the blood leave her face. "You're saying I have nothing?" Harold looked at her with something close to pity. "I'm saying you signed nothing. That's what this is." She stumbled out of the office, the city suddenly too bright, too loud, too fast. She tried logging into the business banking app on her phone. Access denied. She called her bank. Frozen. She dialed her accountant. No answer. She pulled up the Secretary of State filing for her LLC. Owner, LMI Holdings, LLC. She clicked the link. Managing Director D. Miller. She stared at the screen, lips parting but no sound coming out. Everything, the store, the brand, the logo she spent hours obsessing over with her designer, the scent formula, even the damn packaging patent, was gone, transferred, erased. Her empire, built on borrowed money and borrowed time, had vanished. And the man who built it? He wasn't coming back. Brunch used to be a performance, Rachel's runway. The corner table at Murray's was hers by silent consensus, always set with blush linen napkins, citrus water, and just the right angle to catch sunlight in her champagne glass. She didn't reserve it, they just knew. Her friends came dressed like they were stepping into a curated Instagram carousel, silk scarves, oversized sunglasses, artful disinterest. They laughed at inside jokes Rachel wrote and rehearsed. She set the tone, the pace, the hierarchy. And Daniel, he was a punchline, the nice guy who paid for everything and understood nothing. But today, as she walked in 15 minutes late, no one stood to greet her. No cheek kisses, no theatrics, just four women pretending to be interested in their phones until she slid into her seat with a too loud, "Sorry, traffic." The silence was aggressive. Finally, Mira, always the diplomatic one, spoke. "So, what happened with Mark?" Rachel blinked. "Mark? You know." Mira sipped her Bellini. "The hedge guy from the GALA. I heard he flew back to New York. Alone." Rachel's throat tightened. "We had fun, but I'm not attached." Lena smirked without looking up. "That's not what it looked like." Rachel forced a laugh, too sharp. "I didn't realize we were dissecting tabloid stories now." But no one laughed with her. Across the table, Grace muttered, just loud enough, "Daniel always did everything for her. I used to think that was love. Now I think it was management." Rachel snapped her head toward her. "What's that supposed to mean?" Grace shrugged. "Just saying. He was always stable. You knew he'd catch whatever you dropped." Mira cleared her throat. "Have you talked to him?" Rachel lied. "Of course, we're sorting things." Lena finally looked up. "Is it true he's the one who built the site? I tried to pull up your store yesterday, said it was under maintenance or something." Rachel's fingers twitched around her water glass. "It's being rebranded." Another lie. She had tried logging into the back end the night before, locked, admin access revoked, emails bounced, customer service redirected her to the new operations team. The table fell quiet again. Rachel tried to pivot. "Anyway, I'm launching a new concept soon. Higher end, more direct to consumer." "Sounds expensive," Lena said, folding her menu. "Let us know when it's real." She smiled like she meant it, but she didn't. None of them did. Not anymore. After brunch, Rachel stood outside waiting for her rideshare, pretending to scroll through emails. None were from investors, none from suppliers, just automated updates about changed passwords and account transitions. Out of reflex, she dialed her old assistant. "Hi, Nicole?" Rachel tried to inject warmth. "It's me." A pause. "Hi, Rachel. Listen, I know things have been weird, but can you meet? We need to relaunch. I have new ideas. I can make this work. I just need someone who knows the systems." Another pause. Too long. Then, "I'm working for the new owner now." Rachel blinked. "You what?" I'm with LMI Holdings now. They offered me full-time, benefits, stability." "Nicole, I'm sorry." The call ended. Rachel stood alone in a city where every corner had once felt like hers, where she'd been the woman with the table, the friends, the boutique, the story everyone wanted to retell. Now, her name only survived in footnotes and whispers over egg-white omelets. She wasn't envied anymore. She was studied, like a cautionary tale in designer heels. She noticed the envelope before the doorknob. It was taped to the front door, right over the brass plaque she'd installed last year that read, "The Millers." Embossed, pretentious. She loved it. The envelope was plain white, no stamp, no return address, just her first name, written in block letters like a label on a body in the morgue. She ripped it open. Inside, a printed notice of occupancy reassignment and a thin yellow slip titled, "Courtesy Notification, Change of Property Management." At first, she laughed. It had to be a mistake, a misfiled notice or some HOA nonsense. Then she turned the key in the lock and stepped inside and realized what was missing. The smell. The house no longer smelled like her. No diffusers, no vanilla sage candle burning in the entryway. The hall closet was empty. No Daniel's raincoat, no umbrellas, no reusable shopping bags. Gone. And on the kitchen counter, her utilities, gas, water, internet, all in Daniel's name again. She hadn't noticed the change because she never paid them. Never needed to. She checked the Nest thermostat. Locked. The Wi-Fi. Disconnected. Her phone buzzed with a low battery warning. She reached for the charger near the wine rack. Gone. Rachel stood in the center of what had been their open-plan kitchen and felt it shrinking. Her heels echoed against the floor, more space than sound now. She opened the fridge, half full but with nothing she bought. Oat milk, Greek yogurt, a brand of hummus Daniel liked and she mocked. He was restocking, like she was already gone. Her voice cracked the silence. "Daniel?" Nothing. She ran upstairs to the master. Her walk-in closet was still full, her dresses, her shoes, her curated seasonal racks. But his side? Cleared. Clean hangers, no belts, no aftershave on the dresser. The man had moved out like a surgeon, precise, bloodless. The ensuite bathroom was scrubbed. Even the toothbrush holder had one slot now. a single spare towel folded on the rack like a statement. She grabbed her laptop, trembling now, and opened the county records portal. Typed in the address. Owner, Bellington Trust. Trustee, LMI Holdings. She clicked deeper. Quitclaim deed executed and filed April 14th. Signatory, Rachel L. Miller. Witnessed and notarized. She stared. Her name, her signature. It wasn't forged. It was hers. Again, the refinance documents. He'd buried it in that pile. The yellow stickies. The trust reassignment. She remembered signing quickly, too annoyed at the rates to read every page. He hadn't tricked her. He'd anticipated her. She called the title office in a fury. This is Rachel Miller. I need to speak to someone about a fraudulent deed. My house title was changed without consent. The clerk cut her off. You're not listed as an owner. I was. This is my house. Ma'am, your name was removed via a notarized quitclaim deed. The title is held under Bellington Trust now. You'll need to contact the trustee for further inquiry. She hung up before she started screaming. Rachel paced the living room like a caged animal. She opened drawers, slammed them shut, picked up a vase, threw it, shattered. Still, no one answered. No Daniel, no neighbors, no witnesses, no rescue. She opened the front door and stepped outside, only to see a discreet little sticker now pressed against the mailbox. Managed by LMI Property Services. She hadn't just lost a house. She was now a tenant in what used to be her marriage. The key still worked, but the lock meant nothing. She didn't live here anymore. She was just staying, until someone decided she'd overstayed. And the man she'd once tossed a valet ticket at? He was now the landlord. She picked the restaurant, a rooftop lounge in the city's financial district, high enough to feel important, but casual enough to mask desperation. Rachel dressed with intent, clean lines, muted tones, subtle jewelry, just enough power to pretend she still had some. She arrived first, as planned, ordered sparkling water and pretended to scroll through emails while every second dragged the illusion closer to collapse. When Daniel arrived, he didn't look like vengeance. No tailored rage, no smug satisfaction, just calm, pressed navy blazer, no tie, eyes steady, one hand holding a manila folder, the other tucked casually into his coat pocket like he had nowhere else to be and nothing left to prove. Rachel stood too quickly. Hi. Hi, he said, as if they were former co-workers at a reunion, not spouses standing on the edge of scorched earth. They sat. The waitress appeared. He asked for tea. She asked for nothing. I appreciate you meeting, Rachel began. Her voice was even, but her hands betrayed her, twisting the cloth napkin like it had answers. Daniel didn't reply. She tried again. I think things got off track. This doesn't have to be hostile. His brow lifted slightly. Hostile? You've frozen accounts. You've locked me out of the business, of the house. You've turned my friends against me. That feels a little strategic. Daniel placed the manila folder on the table between them, flipped it open like a magician preparing a trick no one could undo. Inside, photocopies, originals, notarized stamps, time-stamped emails, transaction records. She recognized some, others she didn't remember signing, but the signatures were hers, her handwriting, her initials, her blind trust in sticky notes and the word routine. This isn't what it looks like, she said quietly. It's exactly what it looks like, he replied. You orchestrated this, months in advance. You planned this. I prepared, he said simply. There's a difference. Her throat tightened. You manipulated me. I gave you papers. You signed them. That's not manipulation. That's muscle memory. She sat back. You knew I wouldn't read them. He met her eyes now. And you knew I wouldn't question you until I did. There was no edge in his voice. That's what cut deepest. He wasn't angry. He wasn't smug. He was done. Rachel shifted tactics. Okay, fine. You made your point. But this isn't proportionate. I was unfaithful, yes, but we had a life, a history, a business. You don't have to erase me. He nodded slightly, then reached into the folder again, pulled out one page, handwritten, old. She recognized it instantly. Her business plan from years ago, the first draft, scribbled at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and stars in her eyes. Our dream, she'd written in the corner. She looked at him, unsure whether he brought it to sting her or to mourn what they'd lost. He slid it toward her. You were the dreamer, he said. I was the builder. But you started thinking dreams don't need foundations, that they float. They don't. She blinked fast, lashes damp. What do you want me to say? He leaned forward slightly, voice low but firm. I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to understand something, finally. I didn't trick you. I didn't forge anything. I just started reading what I sign, that's all. Rachel didn't speak, couldn't, because deep down, beneath the bruised ego, the broken image, the desperation to claw something back, she knew he was right. She had built nothing on her own, not the business, not the house, not even the persona she wore like armor. Daniel had built it all, quietly, faithfully, and then, just as quietly, dismantled it while she posed for photos. Now she sat across from him with a napkin in her lap and her empire reduced to a folder of facts. He didn't yell, he didn't gloat, he just stood, buttoned his jacket, and left her there, surrounded by strangers too polite to stare and consequences too loud to ignore. They met one more time, at her request, different setting this time, his choice, a private room in a quiet law office downtown, frosted glass, heavy door, dim recessed lighting, no windows, no view, just a table, 2 chairs, and the soft hum of a wall-mounted clock that never seemed to tick loud enough. Daniel was already there when she arrived, seated, calm, flipping through a legal pad like he was waiting for a client. Rachel walked in slower this time, less posture, less performance. She wore black, not for style, but because she didn't know what else to wear when mourning something you can't bury. No small talk. He nodded to the chair across from him. She sat. From his leather briefcase, he withdrew one last document, neatly clipped, 1 page, printed in crisp serif font. "This is it," he said. She didn't reach for it, just stared. He slid it across the table. A mutual release, no alimony, no ongoing support, no future claims to assets, brands, trusts, or intellectual property, no lawsuits, no social media disclosures, no interviews, no drama, just clean severance, and in exchange, her car, her jewelry, a single checking account with enough to get by, not enough to rebrand herself. "No headlines," Daniel said. "No lawyers, no noise." Her throat tightened. "You're really going to leave me with nothing?" He looked at her for a long moment, not cruelly, not kindly, just honestly. "You left yourself with nothing," he said, "the moment you tossed that valet ticket." She didn't cry immediately. She looked down at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Pale knuckles, a chipped manicure, wrinkled skin around the ring finger where a diamond used to sit. She whispered, "You loved me." "I did," he said, "completely." "Then why?" "I also loved peace, and you killed that first." It wasn't theatrical, it wasn't venomous, it was just true. She picked up the document, hands shaking, scanned the language like she could find a trap, something to negotiate, something to control, but it was watertight, final, clean. "I helped build this life," she said, barely audible. Daniel exhaled. "And when it came time to protect it, you brought strangers into our home, into our name. You made choices. I made mine. I never thought you'd go this far. You never thought I'd matter this much," he corrected. "You thought I was just a wallet with a patient face, but I kept the receipts." Her eyes welled up, but she fought it. "I thought you'd still be kind." "I am," he said. "That's why I'm offering this. You could have nothing. Legally, I owe you less than this." She stared at the page, swallowed. "Can I think about it?" He leaned back. "Sure, you have until Friday. After that, the offer expires and we go to court, publicly." She flinched. He stood, gathered his briefcase, and paused at the door. "You said at brunch once," he said, eyes unfocused, "that I wasn't ambitious enough, that I didn't think big, that I didn't know how to win." He looked at her now. "I just prefer my victories quiet." And then he left. Rachel sat in that sterile room with 1 page and no one left to call. The silence wrapped around her like a verdict. She had always believed she could charm, twist, distract, or seduce her way out of consequences. But this wasn't fury. This was a man who had nothing left to give and nothing left to lose, and it was the first time she realized just how much that man could take. She signed the papers on a Wednesday, not because it was symbolic or because it marked some emotional breakthrough. She signed because it rained that morning and her apartment's ceiling had started leaking, and her lawyer said, "If you want any part of the deal left, today's the last day." So she sat at a cracked kitchen table that wobbled if you leaned too hard, used a ballpoint pen with a chewed cap, and pressed her name onto the final line like an afterthought. Rachel L. Miller. It didn't even look like her handwriting anymore. No drama, no tears, just ink. The next day, her Instagram grid was blank. Not archived, deleted. The black tie photos, the staged boutique shots, the vacations with Daniel where she captioned sunsets with things like "grateful for the journey," all gone, as if the algorithm itself had ghosted her. She opened her brand's old website, out of habit maybe, reflex, muscle memory. It didn't redirect. It loaded. Same color palette, same logo design, but the name was gone, changed, shorter, sleeker, sharper, something that sounded like it belonged in a luxury airport lounge instead of a pop-up farmer's market. She clicked About. No mention of her, not even a nod. At the bottom of the site, a property of LMI Holdings. She stared at the footer like it had insulted her mother. LMI, Daniel's initials, the man who used to carry boxes into her store on weekends, who used to hand-stamp shipping labels at midnight, who built her checkout system from scratch because she didn't like the vibe of Shopify. That man now owned the story, the supply chain, the trademark, and apparently her silence. She scrolled through the new product photos, the same candle molds, the same scent combinations, the same glass jars she used to order from Italy. But the names were different. Gone were Wild Grace and Winter Ember. Now it was Unit 7 and Black Vault. Cooler, more masculine, less Rachel. It was like watching her past have a better future without her. She opened her messages, scrolled to his name, still there, still unblocked. One last attempt. She typed, "Do you ever think of me?" and hit send. The message delivered. No bounce, no error. She waited. An hour, then 2, then the rest of the day. Nothing. The next morning the message was still unread. She deleted it. She tried calling Mira. No answer. Tried texting Nicole. Number no longer in service. She thought about reaching out to Grace, but didn't. What would she say? "I lost everything, but at least I still have my car and a box of jewelry I can't wear in public." She sat on the floor of her apartment that night, knees pulled to her chest, listening to the drip from the ceiling land in a salad bowl. There was no rage left, no defiance, just the slow realization that the man she once dismissed as too nice, the man she silenced at dinner parties, the man she cheated on in plain sight, had not screamed, begged, or retaliated. He had simply removed her, carefully, legally, surgically. Her brand now belonged to someone else. Her house had been refiled and reassigned. Her friends had closed their circles. Her old world had closed its doors. And all that remained, truly, was the echo of a name no one wanted to say aloud anymore. Rachel Miller used to be someone. Now, she was a former, a footnote, a cautionary tale told in whispers by people who wouldn't say it to her face. And Daniel? He hadn't just moved on. He'd never looked back. The lighting was almost identical to that night. Crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, tables named after rare wines, live quartet humming something expensive and forgettable in the background, guests swirling in bespoke suits and backless gowns, their laughter engineered to be overheard. Rachel walked in late, not by design, by necessity. The only dress she had left that fit the occasion had been altered twice to hide seams she couldn't afford to replace. Her heels pinched, her hair wouldn't fall right, but she told herself she belonged, that she still had access. She had no invitation, but her name still opened a few doors, if used carefully, and so she moved from cluster to cluster, flashing smiles that used to mean something, sipping from flutes she didn't refill, scanning the room with increasing desperation. And then she saw him, Daniel, across the room, at a corner table reserved for actual power, not influencers, not creative partners, real capital. He looked lighter, not just slimmer but unburdened, no tension in his jaw, no watch checking, no slumped shoulders from being dragged behind someone else's spotlight. And beside him, his date, not a trophy, not a proxy, a woman with her own gravity, her own name on a patent or a product or a boardroom door. You could tell just by the way she sat, not showing off, occupying. They weren't holding hands. They didn't need to. A donor leaned in close to Daniel, chuckled, then, just loud enough for Rachel to hear, "Glad you're finally with someone worthy of your name." Daniel smiled, didn't look her way, didn't even flicker. Rachel turned away before they could make eye contact. She wasn't sure if she wanted him to see her, or if she was terrified he already had, and had decided she wasn't even worth a nod. She walked fast, head down, past tables and trays, out into the cool night air. The valet podium was empty except for one young man fiddling with his earpiece. She cleared her throat. "I'm waiting for a black Audi, under—" He cut her off. "Miss Miller?" She blinked. "Yes?" He reached into the drawer and handed her a folded bill. $50, nothing else, no envelope, no explanation, just money. And then the line, "Mr. Kessler asked me to give you this, said you'd understand." Rachel didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. The valet shifted awkwardly. "Do you have a ride coming?" She nodded slowly, though she didn't. She took the bill, clutched it like a verdict. walked down the block until the music was a whisper behind her, and in her hand, the 50 burned like a mirror. He hadn't just remembered, he had planned it, full circle, the gala, the insult, the discarded man with the valet ticket in his hand, except now she was the one standing alone, and he was the one already gone,